Fox Valley Voice.
Hi, I'm Jaime Gutierrez, and this is the Fox Valley Voice podcast. And I'm recording this in a field behind my house at 11:30 at night because I waited until the last minute. I waited till the night before the release date, which I keep telling my son not to wait till the last minute to do his homework, and that's exactly what I've done. So I guess I know where he gets it from. But, as parents, we always want better for our kids than we've done. So, James, if you're listening to this, don't wait till the last minute. So welcome, this is episode 95, although it will be my first episode in over 2 years. So I figured, hey, it's time to get this thing going again. And in honor of episode 95, we are going to chat with Scott Mackay, who is the morning host at 95.9 The River. And we had a very excellent conversation. It's quite long, but hey, this is a podcast, which means you can pause it and come back to it whenever you need to. Not all the shows are going to be this long, but we had so much to talk about that, we just let the tape roll. There is some adult language during the course of this conversation, so please be aware of that. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Scott Mackay.
Yeah, keeps popping up now that I looked at it.
And what are you going to do with a 4K video camera?
I don't know. I want to learn to play with it. Because we were doing those videos for our real estate, and where Susie and I would sing in the bathroom.
Okay.
And we did, Mockingbird by Carly Simon and James Taylor, and then we did, what was the first one? They were both. It was Kenny Loggins and Stevie Nicks.
Which one is that?
Whenever I Call You Friend.
Oh, yeah.
So, Susie,
I love Kenny Loggins.
I'm at the sink and sitting there, and the song comes on, and I just look up and lip sync Whenever I Call You Friend. And then when Stevie Nicks comes up, all of a sudden you see Susie from behind in her purple bathrobe pop up behind me with her towel on her head, and looks like, with her toothbrush and hairbrush. And we just lip synced the song because we were trying to build our rock and roll realtors page on YouTube.
Okay.
So then we would post them, and they were taken down a couple places, and finally we got the right copyright language. Kenny Loggins had it taken down.
Okay, well, I've heard that you and Kenny Loggins had a beef.
Well, it wasn't really a beef.
Right?
I just lied to him.
Oh.
He doesn't know it.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's not involved in the beef because he doesn't know I lied to him. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I have no idea.
So,
please.
How did you hear that we had a beef?
I was just making that up.
Well, we did. So I was introducing him on stage at the Arcada Theater.
Okay.
And we were backstage, and one of the band members looked down and saw on my wife's lower leg, that there's a Winnie the Pooh there. And he goes, "Oh, that's really cool." And I said, "Yeah, she's a big fan of Kenny Loggins. She's loved him all her life, and House at Pooh Corner is her favorite song." So she had the Winnie Pooh put there. So Kenny Loggins gets up right before I introduce him. He's backstage, and they're going, "Hey, Kenny, look at this girl's leg. She's got Winnie the Pooh." And he looked, and the favorite song is House at Pooh Corner. He goes, "Wow, that's really cool." So I go out on stage, and I tell the story of the Winnie the Pooh on stage, and how Kenny just saw it and he was, impressed, and bring him out. And here's Kenny Loggins. So he gets to House at Pooh Corner. He goes, "Hey, listen, there was a young lady backstage. The guy that introduced me, it's his wife. I want to dedicate this to her. because she has Winnie the Pooh. The reason she has Winnie the Pooh on her leg is because she went and got a tattoo of a sun that ended up looking like a ringworm, and the colors were really bad. So she went to another tattoo artist, and he said, the only thing I can do with those colors is this or Winnie the Pooh. And she goes, do Winnie the Pooh. so he dedicated it. 900 people. It's at the Arcata.
Yeah,
none of it was true.
Well, yeah, I can't see why he would be upset about that.
I don't think he'd be upset, but it's still dishonest. In an unhurtful way.
Yeah, and then how did the wife take it?
Oh, she was all part of it. She was pretending too.
Okay.
She thought it was cool, and she tells the story. So obviously,
that's a great story.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Kenny Loggins of all people, and man, I think he sounds better now than he did when I saw him. I saw him on Daryl's house.
Okay, that's a great show.
So wonder. I never saw it. I just started watching it, and
we could do something like that here, don't you think?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Get
absolutely.
some people down here.
Yeah, I just can't play anything.
You could do the
I could tambourine it.
There you go.
I could Archie it.
Wood blocks. How about
I could do wood blocks.
Okay.
Okay. But those are more prominent. You'd probably hear it. Ooh, he's off a little bit. But I mean, I'm in radio because I love music.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with personality. I just wanted to play really bad 70s songs.
So the personality came later then?
Later.
Okay. That's good. You still working on it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, every day. Yeah. No, without Kevin Matthews, who I worked with here for 7 years, I had never done character-based radio. I was just a DJ. The typical, hey, Journey, don't stop believing, more variety, more music, more variety, a better mix 98.5 Boston.
Okay.
And there was all that kind of stuff. And, you talk fast. Back in the day, I screamed. In 1981, I was working at a place called Wacky 102 in Springfield, Mass. So I was 20. I was 20, and you turned on the mic and you went, Wacky 102 FM, and it was so compressed that your levels just stayed at 100%, and the music, Don McLean's crying with a little, it's just a little guitar at the beginning is 100%. You're going, Wacky 102 FM, and Don McLean crying number 1. And then the song, I was all right. And that's how it was. So it took me probably 4 years to just stop doing that.
Calm down and just let your true self start to seep in.
So now I parody the DJ.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but that's what it is. You know?
26 after the hour.
Yeah, man. Remember when they did double time checks? 8:05, 5 after 8.
Oh, man.
Do you think that someone didn't understand the 8:05?
That's pretty self-explanatory.
But we had to do that. That was the program director. There was one program director, you cannot say degrees. Ever.
Degrees?
No, high of 65, low of 32. Do not say degrees.
I get that because it's kind of implied.
I know.
It's like...
Yeah, well, we're not a Celsius country. So.
No, or Kelvin or anything like that.
But, those weird things that you go through. So when I was with Kevin, I went in as my name, Scott Mackay, and I'm on his show, and I was production director. So I was behind the scenes at 94.7 when it was a classic hits format in Chicago.
Okay.
And so I'm behind the scenes. 2 years, I'm doing all the promotion imaging stuff that says we're a rock station, not like CKG, which is really a talk station. At the time, they were talking, but they were calling themselves the Rock of Chicago, WCKG, and they weren't. They were talking all the time.
105.9.
Right. So I had to write everything that said they were not, and I was comparing us to them, and everything was slamming CKG and what we were doing better. And we had Bob Stroud, and we had a bunch of the people from Chicago that are living legends and working for us, and no morning show. And we're never going to have a morning show, never going to talk in the morning, always more music in the morning. And after 2 years of pooping on everybody else in the format, they said, we're bringing in a morning show. And I looked at my boss and I go, what? I said, I've been writing for 2 years saying we're not doing that. Now we're going to do that? Mm-hmm. We lost a lot of listeners in those first few months when Kevin came on. But the first day, my boss said to me, now I want you in the studio, in the production studio, when Kevin starts. Because I'd never met him, didn't grow up here, never even heard of him. Mm-hmm. I've heard of him because I had been here 2 years, but I had never heard him or show. So he said, I want you in the studio next door. If he needs something, he knows you're going to be there. He said, don't bother him. He hasn't been on the air for a while. I guess AM 1000 was the last station he'd been on. So he said, just let him do his thing and pop in to let him know, after about 40 minutes.
About what year is this?
This was 10, 15, 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And I don't know the exact year. I don't even know when I moved here. So that's how I don't keep. I just have no recollection of what year it was.
Do you know what day it is today?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do know that. So I'm sitting in there, and he comes on, and I'm hearing, doing his intro and all this, and I'm sitting in there and go, wow, this is like the weirdest show I've ever heard, but very cool. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to Jim Shorts and the newswoman, and there's a sports guy, and I said, this is a full blown morning show. And so after about 40 minutes, I said, okay, now I can go in. And I knew the newswoman was in this studio. I had already talked to her, and I knew the sports guy. So he was in his own studio, and he couldn't see anyone he was talking to except for his producers, Doogie, and I think Shemp was there as well.
Okay.
So they're in the front. And so I go walking in the studio. They had stepped out, and I go, hi, Kevin. And he goes, hey, bud, how are you? And I said, good. I said, I'm Scott Mackay. I'm in production. If you need any music beds or production or want me to produce something for you, I can. He goes, all right. And I'm looking around, and he goes, what?
And you're looking for Jim, right?
I wanted to meet Jim so badly. I could not. I said, what does this guy look like?
Right.
That's all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there looking, and he goes, what are you doing? I said, where's Jim? And he looked at me, and he goes, are you serious? And I said, yeah. He goes, I'm Jim. And I said, what do you mean you're Jim? And he goes, I'm Jim. I said, you do both voices? He goes, yeah. I said, so you're talking to yourself? And he goes, yeah. And I went, oh my God. I said, I've been in radio 28 years at that time. No, less, probably 22 years. And I said, that's amazing. And from then on in, I just found him extremely talented.
He is. And, I grew up listening to him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So since we don't know when you got to town, I'm not quite sure where to start with my lifelong love affair of Chicago broadcasting.
Yeah.
But, there were
I think
stations
it's around 2000.
Okay.
To town.
So like the Loop had a crazy lineup. It was like Brandmeier and Matthews and,
Steve Dahl and Stephen Gary.
Cochran thrown in there every once in a while. But, and then they would move from station to station because they would be like, all right, we're not talking anymore. We're back to music. Right. And then they would go from the Loop to CKG or, from CKG to, 94.7 and then AM 1000 and, all that stuff.
So I was on with him at 94.7 and then I went back to Boston for 3 years.
Okay. And
then came back to him, CKG, because he had Lumpy doing the weight loss challenge on Dr. Phil on CKG in the second flight. So that's later in 2000. And then I came back and he held out for more money and hired Howard Stern's management. And the management said, don't take the offer. They'll come back. And guess what?
They didn't.
Mm-mm. So he went back to Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
And he has MS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just did an event with him not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was at, I don't even know the name of the place. We were somewhere in Clarendon Hills or Hinsdale in that area. But it was a sports bar, and it was really good to see him. Mm-hmm. He actually looked better than I thought he would. Because some days I see posts where he says, I'm learning to walk again. So
he was always one of my favorites. It was forever before I knew that Jim Shorts was not a thing, that was not a real guy. Well, because he used to do like crazy stuff with the mics, right? Like you would hear him off mic.
Right. He'd do that, and he'd also pre-record some stuff.
Okay.
So some of it, most of the time he was live with Jim. Yeah. Especially when it was live, but some, they were produced bits also that they would produce, and there was no social media, so there was no way of knowing. But he does. He'll let's check Jenna. Yeah, that's right, and he'll move his head away from the mic. Yeah. But I think it took him probably quite a few years, and I think first timers, for them to see him doing it always made him uncomfortable.
Right, like you're seeing the guy behind the curtain.
Right, and you have to make a face to be a character. You can't look like Kevin when you're doing Jim Shorts. Yeah. And I think the live broadcasts were the most uncomfortable, where people knew that he was Jim. Yeah. And they'd say, where's Jimmy?
Where's Jim?
And Kevin would always say, oh, he'll be here in a little while. He never jumped right into it. What do you mean, where am I? Or something like that. He always kind of held back. He was a gentle giant, though.
Did you ever see his show that he did on the Chicago Sports TV? Jim Shorts Cavalcade of Sports for You.
I did. I saw like a little bit of it on a YouTube, or someone had it. It was like, God, the makeup, just the makeup alone was priceless.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't look like Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw, and then, even when he did the Eddie Schwartz, the Ed Zeppelin, that was just his ideas in the comedy and bringing his son up on stage and hurting him and pretending to, and I mean, his mind was very deep, different, very unique.
Yeah. Definitely one of my favorites to listen to.
So who else was big? I mean, so did you listen to Johnny B? Did you like Johnny B?
Yeah. I am a huge fan of Johnny B, except for when he did the phone calls, because he used to prank people all the time. He would call when he would find the celebrities who were in town, and he would get the number to their hotel room and call them up and try to piss them off. And like, that makes me physically uncomfortable. I would have to change the channel whenever he did that's funny, the prank phone call, because it's not nice. Yeah. Type of thing. Like it's uncomfortable. Very cringy for me. I could never, growing up, they had those fake phone calls. And, so some services would send you the other half of the phone call and you'd stick your voice in the other part. Oh, okay. So you weren't really calling them, but these weren't celebrities. So when there was another guy that in Massachusetts that was his thing, man, his phone calls, there was two guys from New York. There were two guys from New York that were always on, and I can't remember their names, but they would do the prank calls, and they actually made a bundle off sending these to other radio stations. And I couldn't do it. I felt so uncomfortable trying to be mean to somebody. I can't do that. It's mean-spirited to me anyway. I know a lot
even
of people,
if it's a joke and not mean, it's I don't know. I can't hold it that long. I get nervous and sweaty. Like if I make a mistake on the radio, I still sweat. Yeah. And I'm 39 years in it. So it's like, and I was told, and this is funny, one of my bosses said to me, he said, "You're only as good as you are when you make a mistake." Right. And because things are always going to go haywire. And it becomes the best part of the show. So Johnny B, he told me, which I once again did not grow up listening to, he said Johnny B's mistakes were usually the best part of the show because he acknowledged it and went with it. Mm-hmm. Where if you get, oh my God, I started the wrong song, and it's like, well, so what? What's the end result? You're not the DJ pro you should be. So that's mentality. Well, sure, and that just allows people to identify with you. Right. Nobody's perfect. Oh, wait, he's human. Yeah. God forbid. Yeah. Dick Biondi. Two oldies. So Dick Biondi, which I met much at his later stages, but I've heard of him. In radio, it's an ancestral community as well, where everyone knows someone and someone knows someone. Mm-hmm. So Dick Biondi, I'd heard of. I've definitely heard of Jonathan Brandmeier, heard of Steve Dahlin. Kevin Matthews, well, not so much Steve Dahlin, Kevin, as until I got here. Everyone talked about him, and they hated me, by the way. Yeah. His fans hated me because they designed it as Mo was going to be the needle in the side. You became Mo Driver. Yeah, the best traffic reporter in the world. Hey, gang. And so they made my mic. But you were kind of a whipping boy. Like that. So I did. They used to hassle you a lot. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I remember listening to you back then. And I'd cry, and I'd get fired, and Kev would go, so, hey, bud, when you come on tomorrow, just pretend you slept with Chella, and you're going to cry. And I go, okay. And so I'd sit in the studio, and I was by myself in a little room. It was a closet of sorts, and I had my feet up on the table, and I just laid back with the mic on my mouth, listening, waiting for cues, laughing at the right time. But he'd go, so Mo, you're in big trouble. And I go, why? And, my voice had to be higher. Everything was, hey, gang, happy humper. Best traffic reporter in the world. I'm Mo Driver on 94.7. Kev? Because, geez. What's wrong with you, Mo? Nothing. Why? And so I liked England Dan and John Forcoli. I like Seals and Crofts. I like Puss Rock. And Kevin likes, Lemmy. And so he kills animals, and I like the sound of music. So I played the gay guy on the show, and they named me Mo Driver so Jimmy could call me Homo. Because, like kindergarten you or someone brought up, can you swear on this show?
If you'd like to.
Yeah. Well, I don't really want to, but someone brought up the word fag the other day, and I haven't heard that word. Because as kids, we called each other fags.
Yeah.
And we never found it really hurtful. We didn't mean it in a way that, it's just a name, and now it's so hurtful and so improper to say that word. And my wife's brother is gay and he's military, and he was through the whole don't ask, don't tell, 3 tours of duty in Iraq, and went back, and he really loved the forces and no one knew. And then he went into, he was a police officer in Hollywood and don't ask, don't tell in LA actually. And was a well accommodated police officer. He did really well. But man, you get him drunk outside of the force, and all of a sudden he's a different person. But through all of that, he had to hide it.
Yeah,
he couldn't be who he wanted to be, and nobody knew it. So anyway, I played that character, and I played it well. And was very, very proud of my homo driver days. But they hated me. Because Kevin designed me to be actually the first person to ever confront him. Nobody ever got away with confronting Kevin. So he designed it where I was. And I walked into the Hard Rock Cafe, first live broadcast. I had been kicked off the show because I did something pretend wrong. And
so this is all like soap opera type stuff.
A lot of it was.
Okay.
But I would also piss him off. I'd get under his fingernails. There's no question about it. And he would piss me off, and I'd want to leave. I'd say, I'm leaving the show. So a lot of secrets I've never even told before, but Kevin would say something like, he would just say something to me, and it struck me the wrong way. And I'd say, well, at least I didn't do that. And he goes, what's that, Mo? I said, nothing. He goes, no, you just said something. I said, I don't know. It's just, I wouldn't do it that way. He goes, well, how would you do it? You want to do my show now? And this was him really getting upset that I was taking the show off course. And he would always say, oh, thanks for driving the bus. I'm driving the bus. You just went off the road. He always would do, train wreck type thing. Or you'd hear the trains coming in the train wreck. That meant we're ruining his show because you speak when spoken to, and otherwise laugh and kind of stay in the.
Was it tough to know what was a bit and what was for real? Like,
I think it's tough for the audience, but I knew what was a bit and what was real because I was causing the real.
Oh yeah.
And so I had to deal with my.
But he was encouraging you to do certain things that made it seem like you guys were.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No, and we had that, but there were also times that I truly pissed him off.
Oh, jeez.
And so he didn't know. I would say things that weren't true, that he doesn't know that weren't true. And I had to deal with my program director, and because there was some volatility in our relationship, but in a good way, because it was entertaining. But Kevin didn't know. And then Kevin was a gentle giant, so he never really wanted to upset you, but he had a temper like anyone else that's creative as he is. He wants this to be perfect, but you can't control 5 other people on your show to be thinking the way you're thinking. And so being on the same page is paying attention and learning. So I knew what his ins and outs were, and I also knew his buttons. So if I needed to push one, I'd push one just for my enjoyment because I was bored. I was sitting in there and maybe he's talking to Jen. And I used to do an Aunt Bee voice all the time and make fun of Jen with her, pie. Let's have some pie or a gin Ricky, and then he'd go into, hey, Aunt Bee, you're looking good today, and do his Barney thing. And so that was all good and fun. But there was if you said the wrong thing to him, if you pushed them the wrong way, he'd get mad and then he'd start turning off my mic. And and I'm saying, come on, Kevin, you don't have to turn off my mic. And I'd play up the gay character or the whiny guy, stop turning off my Kevin. Go ahead, Mo. I'm sorry. I won't do that. All right. So and I go, you're a jerk. If you do that again, I'm leaving the show. And he goes, oh, sure you are, Mo. He goes, you get fired if you leave the show. And I said, no, I won't. He goes, yeah, you will. And I said, will you do it one more time? All right, I'm gone. And I took my headphones off and I left the radio station and went home. So now Kevin's calling me. Mo, are you all right, man? And then on air and off air. So he'd call me. He goes, Bud, what happened? Why did you leave? It was, and I was making a point and I felt I was right, but he wasn't allowing it. So I was mad. But my boss had said to me, if you leave, it's fine. It'll create tension on the show, which is good. Mm-hmm. So I would leave, and then Kevin would call me all day, and I'd finally call him back. Say, I'm fine, but I got over it. Don't worry about it. He goes, that's all right, because I'm worried about how what Bill Gamble's going to say about that. I said, oh, yeah. Well, I said, I'll do. It's my responsibility, I guess. So we did that a lot. So there was one time that I told him off air, because he always said, if you tell me something off air that you don't want on air, I won't say it. Mm-hmm. So I put that to the test. And once again, my program director and I kind of set this up. So I had said that I had to sell my wife's wedding ring because things were tough. Mm-hmm. And it was my second wife. And she's a radio person, Brooke Hunter. So she had been on Q101 and 94.7, Brooke and Jill show and all that stuff. So I said, I'm having some tough times. And, I flew back and forth to Boston because I had a son from another relationship there, my first wife. So I'm going back and forth. And I said, yeah, I had to sell the ring. And he said, oh, dude, that's so bad. Anything I can do. I said, well, I know you can't increase my salary. So no, I'm fine. So we got in a fight one day and he goes, well, at least I didn't sell my wedding ring. And I went, what was that?
On the air?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And he goes, at least I didn't have to sell my wedding ring. And I said, well, that's not for air. He goes, well, that's what you said, though. That's what you told me. I said, I know, but you said you wouldn't say anything on the air. He goes, oops, I guess I just did. And so I played the jerk thing. Well, I still don't know to this day if he knows that wasn't real.
Okay.
And we had, as my boss had said, don't tell him. So it was one of those things where he threw it out there that one day because he was mad at me. And that was fun, uncomfortable stuff, but it was good. I mean, I loved it.
I don't know if I could be in that kind of a atmosphere where
I was younger.
You and the PD are conspiring against the host, and then he's throwing that stuff out there. That's like, no.
It's very, very bizarre. But Kevin and I have always loved each other. I mean, I would do anything for him. He has taught me more in the time that I was with him than anyone, because I never played a character. I was just a DJ. So that's how it all came together. And I loved it. So on my show now on the river, there are, yes. I mean, you can't help working with someone so long and not picking up as Raymond Burr or is it wrong? All that stuff. And you just, people call and they know that I was Mo Driver. Some do, a lot of people don't, but people will once in a while go, hey, Mo, it's like, hey, and I don't care about that. I love the fact that they know that, but they'll go, where are you calling from? And they'll say Batavia, Illinois. So when they do that, Kevin's response was always the Larry King. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Yes.
So I'll throw that in because they're throwing it out there because it's all in homage to him.
Yeah.
And people say, I like you because you sound a little like Kev here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So
to this day, I still, even if I'm driving the car and I'm listening to the radio and there's a news report and there's a funny name, or not a funny name, but just a weird name, right? Like throw out a...
We do this too.
Right?
So if you say Gusty wins today.
Hall.
Gusty wins.
Gusty wins. But just like...
But he would say, and then there's Devon, who would say, oh, I got a sister named Jabelia. Yeah, what's her last name? What does she do? And those were traditional. But the thing with Kevin was that was my band in high school. So if you said Gusty wins, that was always, that was the band. And then he would come up with something. Yeah, we did Peter, Paul, and Mary, like Blowing in the Wind, Always someone with a song with wind in it or something.
Yeah, so. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Right.
Yeah, we stole that game. Yeah, we call it the Tribute 2 game.
You can't help it.
Yeah.
We still do it.
Yeah. I was in a band called,
Gusty Winds, Thunder Thighs. I was in a band, Thunder Thighs. So then you have to think like, we did Meatloaf. Because you have to think someone that's chubby, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
or Aretha.
Well, that's the up and down problem.
Easy. Cool, man. I'm digging these stories, but if we can, I'd like to go back a little bit because you've thrown out the East Coast there a couple of times so far. So I'd like to get an idea of your early days.
Early days.
Early days. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in, I was born in Connecticut, Suffield. It was New London, Connecticut, but we lived in Enfield. And from there in first grade, we used to go up to a lake called Spofford Lake, New Hampshire. It's outside of Keene, New Hampshire, which is Keene State College is out there. So we went up there for the summers. We moved there when I was 6 in Chesterfield. It was a small town just outside of Spofford Lake. And we lived in an old inn, 1700s inn.
Really?
And we had half of it. So we rented 13 rooms, 2 of the big claw bathtubs because it was an inn. And then downstairs were 2 half baths. And they had the passageway up back with the old kitchen. So you could deliver stuff, but they were steep stairs. They were straight up for the staff. And then the other half was 8 rooms, and I rented to someone else. So we had 5 kids in our family growing up there. 2 of them were born there, my younger brother and sister. So I have 1 on each side, older brother, older sister, younger brother, younger sister. I'm in the middle. So we grew up in Chesterfield, New Hampshire. Then we moved to Keene when we went to Keene High School. There was a Chesterfield Elementary through 8th grade. When we got to graduation, we kind of moved 8 miles away to Keene. And so I grew up in Keene, and we had a radio station in our high school. I played baseball. I was a left-handed pitcher. Had a great 4 years. I was 13-0, I think, in high school. I had 3 curveballs and a slow ball. My coach used to tell me if I threw early junk too, and people couldn't hit junk, so that's why I won all my games. And I definitely was had complete control, and I love being on the mound.
So you're like a Greg Maddux.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the knuckleball pitcher, Tim Wakefield, for the Red Sox.
Okay.
But I'm left-handed, so my coach used to call me his personal flake, Bill Lee, because those were the 70s when Bill Lee pitched for the Red Sox. He was called Spaceman. So in Keene, we had a Votech Center with a radio station, and it was a 2-hour class, but you couldn't take it till you were junior or senior. Now, at 6 years old, I asked from the Sears catalog for the mic and the speaker because I wanted to do my own radio show.
At 6 years old?
6 years old.
Okay.
I was so in love with music. Tom Jones, Barbra Streisand, all the stuff my dad had. I guess there wasn't much rock back then. So I grew up with that stuff, and then we'd listen to the radio all day long, always on in our house. So I wanted to do my own show. And so I got it. I got the Sears, the thing, and I do my little radio show by myself. So it's something I always wanted to do. And at 11, Chesterfield JC used to pick me up at 4:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And I'd go into WTSA in Brattleboro, Vermont, because we were 8 miles from the border of Brattleboro, or Vermont. So I would go into his show, and his name was his on-air name was Dan Taylor, but his real name was Carroll, which I thought bizarre that a man was named Carroll.
Right.
But I guess I didn't pay much attention to Carroll O'Connor.
Right.
So I'd go in and hand him his 45s. So we were playing 45s, and they're in a stack. So you had to take from the top 3. Because there were probably 15 in a stack, and those were the power records that played every hour and a half. And so you'd go the top 2. And then the older ones you could go 5 in, and then you just put them on the bottom and repeat them. And you'd have to cue them up on the turntable. So I did that. And then in high school, we had our own station, and I was on that show. And I laughed because everybody, those were the 77, 78 were the years. I graduated 79, so 78, 79.
Right. So lots of Foreigner. Boston.
Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. That wasn't me. I didn't like Pink Floyd. I didn't like Led Zeppelin. That was drug music.
Yeah, you were the granola guy, right? With the Dan.
I wish
Dan Fogarty, right? Or
Fogelberg. Yeah, I might have played Dan Fogarty. I don't think they had anything from that show. I don't think he ever sang Fogarty. What was his name? What show did he have with the bear? He had a bear, Dan.
Oh, was that wasn't
Dan Haggerty?
Haggerty,
his name. That's right.
We're mixing all kinds
That's
of
all right.
together.
So we, my first song on the station was "He Don't Love You Like I Love You" by Tony Orlando and Dawn. So that's what I like. Billy Don't Be a Hero, Rock Me Gently by Andy Kim. I like pop, bubblegum,
Chevy Van.
Oh, Sammy Johns, any day of the week, 1975. So I would play those, and the local station heard me, and they said, my English teacher substitute was the night guy on the local station WKNE. So he told me he was leaving and that his 6 to midnight shift was going to be open. I said, well, I'm still in school. He goes, you have 5 months left. He said you could do the show and come to school. So by the time he left, you had to take a test. You had to go down to Boston and take an FCC test and get elements 1, 2, and 9. Well, I flunked 9 on the test. So I only passed 1 and 2, so I couldn't get the job. A week later, the FCC changed the law and said you can just now fill out a form and get your license. So I got the job. They hadn't hired anyone. So for the last 3 months of high school, I was doing 6 to midnight going to school. And it was because I wasn't playing Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. So I think it was, the right time. But I had no idea. I sounded like a girl. I was 17. I had a pretty high voice.
You still got some of your air checks from back then?
I don't. I don't have one air check from there, and I wish I did. I don't have any air checks from probably 6 or 7 of my early stations, which sucks. I mean, it would be really nice to have them. But I know it was like WKNE and Sports at 45 brought to you by the Monadnock Sports Boosters. Gills Gilbert blocked so many shots and da-da-da. And someone calls me and goes, did you just say Gills Gilbert? And I said, yeah, the hockey guy. He goes, it's Gilles Gilbert. So that's what I was going through. So that my learning curve. So I did that. I was there, I think, a year and a half. Went to Springfield, Vermont, the armpit of Vermont. It was a paper mill town. And I did that for about 9 months to a year, 6 to midnight. And I ended up being the program director in the first job. After a year, the program director left. So I, basically did signing logs and stuff like that. So then Springfield, Vermont for about a year. From there, I went to Springfield, Massachusetts, the armpit of Massachusetts, and lived with my aunt and my cousins. And that was Wacky 102 FM, previously mentioned. So I was there a year and a half. And then I went to Exeter, New Hampshire, out by the seacoast, closer to where I'm from. So I spent 5 years there.
Wow.
And that was too long for my boss, who bought a station in Buffalo. So they shipped me off to Buffalo. And I worked there for a few months, but I got fired there because I had a riff with another guy that wanted the job that I got. And he wasn't really a big fan of mine for getting that job. And he would dump cigarette ashtrays on my desk, and I'd complain about it. And the boss would say, well, none of these problems happened before you got here, so we're going to let you go. And I said, wait a second. I just moved from New Hampshire to Buffalo. I've been here 4 months. And he said, yeah, we're going to let you go. And I'm in a rental, and now I'm young. I mean, I'm still 20-something. And I called a station across the street, and they said, come over. You can do 6 to midnight or 6 to 9 p.m., and that's your shift. And I made more money. And then I worked at a club in Buffalo. Rick James and Eddie Murphy were recording Party all the time.
Okay.
So they came into the club all the time that I worked at. It was called the Inferno in Buffalo. So I did that 3 nights a week, and then my show. And
Wait, when you say you worked at a club, what were you doing?
Dance club, spinning, mixing, beat mixing.
Yeah.
Music. Yeah. So I love that.
Nice. 2 turntables and a microphone.
That's right. And I wasn't the best mixer because I was, new at it, but I loved it. That, I could do that all day long. That was fun. So then from Buffalo, I spent probably 2 years there, and then I went to Hartford, Connecticut. One of the major stations out there is 96 TIC-FM, and I got to work with one of the voiceover guys that I always admired, and that was Ernie Anderson. And I don't know if you know the name.
I do not.
Ernie was the one that always went, tonight on the Love Boat.
Nice.
MacGyver, all new on ABC.
Okay.
And he was just known for ABC stuff. And
yeah.
So he was an older guy. And boy, I mean, he even did the Jaws movie trailers back in the day, 77. But he was big. Charlie's Angels, all new tonight. And he had that. And then he could be funny, too, on an all new Diamond Video. So I used to do the production. I would call him, send him the lines at TIC-FM, and then I'd sit on the phone while he read them. Mm-hmm. So I got to do, and I have reel-to-reels that I have not listened to since then. So that's 86. I haven't heard these, and I want to hear them because he would be, and excuse my language, but he'd go, 96, TI, fuck it. 90, and I'd say, hey, Ernie, could you do that mystery read that you do? Because he just had so many different, and I would write for him specifically. And that was the first time that I really wrote in, there's a new man in town, and he'd go into that. And I said, could you give me that read? He goes, fuck it, I'll do whatever read I want to do. You don't tell me what to do.
He pulled the Orson Welles on you.
Yeah, he did. But he'd do it, and he'd laugh, and he was. I love working with him. But I remember him saying, he goes, my daughter is in West Chicago. She's going to the University of Hartford or whatever it was called. And I went, oh, that's cool. I said, you should have her come in the radio. He goes, no. He said, I know you radio guys. He said, he goes, I will cut your head off and shit down your neck. And I have Ernie Anderson on tape that I haven't found yet telling me that. So I was always big on voice guys.
Oh, yeah.
Casey Kasem, that kind of stuff. So from there, Hartford, I was at 2 different stations, Kiss FM, which was a top 40 dance station. And then I went over to 96 TIC-FM, which was Heritage #1 across the board. They had another very talented morning guy for many years, Gary Craig and Company. He was fantastic. He had Reagan in the studio one day, and I'm driving into work, and all the gold building in downtown Hartford is blocked off, and nobody can get in because of Reagan being in the station. He's interviewing Reagan, and Reagan was very funny. And so I got there, and there was nothing blocked. There was no cop cars. He had security. He was talking to security. He had his news guy down on the street talking to security and talking to people. And I'm sitting here going, well, where are the cop cars? And I get up there and I run into the studio and I go, where's Reagan? And he goes, what? I said, where's Reagan? He goes, I was doing Reagan. And I said, you were talking to yourself as Reagan. So this brings back to the Kevin thing.
Yeah.
Talent does that. I mean, even when you're in the business, when they fool you, you know they're good.
Yeah.
So he wasn't there. It was him being Reagan. And I should have figured out by some of the content, but I just figured he was pulling the best out of Reagan. So Hartford for a while. And from Hartford, I went to New York City and worked at 5th and 52nd, writing and producing a top 40 show for a rhyming DJ, Bill Lee. And Bill Lee worked in San Francisco at some big stations back in the 60s, 70s. And then he was at Hot 94 and he was playing heavy dance music. And he was a white guy that just rhymed. Bill Lee, a dapper rapper, ready to plaster another blah, blah, blah. And everything was a rhyme. So I wrote that and then got the interviews with the stars and cut it up and produced the whole show from start to finish. And we had, I think when I got there, we had about 35, 40 stations and we got it up to 200 stations around the country and it was a top 30. So that was good. And from New York, I went to Denver for 3.5 years where my first boy was born, Shane. And I worked at 103.5 The Fox. And that was a classic hit station. I did production and middays or afternoons, one of those. And from Springfield, so now we're talking 91 is when my son was born. So I was there about 3 years before that. Moved to Boston, worked for 5 stations there until I came here. And then I went back to Boston for a little while as well, same place, when Kevin got fired.
So this is truly a life in radio that you're talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't go to school or anything?
Just high school.
Yeah.
You know, that the 2 years of that vocation. It was a TV radio station, so.
But you knew, like you said, at 6 years old, this is what you wanted to do.
Yep. And I think I missed some stuff, though. I mean, 17, moving out of your house to go up to Vermont, because I was falling asleep coming home 6 to midnight, and I just rented an extra room with a kitchen, you know, off a 3-flat or something. It was just a 1-2-room place. But I remember calling Mom because I had never made a bed. I had never made a meal. I had never cleaned up after myself. I had never done. My mother did everything for all 5 of us every single day. I think I had mowed the lawn once, but my brother usually did that. He's 11 months older, so he did all that stuff. But I had never made a meal. I don't think I'd ever even made a sandwich.
Wow.
I swear to God, my mother just was, Mom, I want a ham and cheese sandwich. All right, sweetheart. And that's the way it was. So.
And you did that for your kids as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I still do. Yeah, they don't do it.
You're not doing them any favors, man.
No, I know. Well, I just called Mom. I said, how do I make a hot dog? She goes, put a little water in the pan, put the hot dog in there to boil, turn it off and leave the cover on 15 minutes.
So your mom was basically your customer service rep. Mm-hmm. You called her on the phone and she told you how to, she walked you through it.
Yeah, every time. Well, except for the burger that I made the next night, I put water in the pan.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's a different technique.
It was my house was full of smoke.
Yeah.
From doing that. So, yeah, I was just, Mom spoiled us all. And she did that for all 5 of us. So, But yeah, I learned. But it was tough at 17 being on your own. I cried a lot.
Yeah.
Being away from the house.
Well, sure. You're just a kid.
Yeah.
Trying to do grown-up stuff.
Right. So, but I feel I missed the college experience. I mean, now that I've visited some colleges with the kids and it's like, wow, that's, I think that's pretty important to go through.
Yeah.
And certainly in continuing education wouldn't hurt anyone.
If you had gone to school or if you were to go back to school now, what would you do?
For school?
Yeah. What would you study?
I'd like to learn a second language more than anything. I'd like to learn Spanish. I wanted to learn that for a long time. And I think I'm at a point right now where I have a little more time than I would have before. So I would like to learn Spanish. And I don't know a lot of American history.
Which is weird, right?
I know. I was not a good student. I basket weaving too, my dad always made a joke. He'd always say, well, you did well in basket weaving too. I was good in, I was good in math until we got to geometry and then I fell apart.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that at all.
I was a math and science guy myself. Really disliked English and history, stuff where you had to write papers.
Yeah.
I would rather sit and do hours and hours of calculations rather than write a 2-page paper. I don't know. It just killed me.
Calculation scared me. Algebra 1 was fine too. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Wasn't advanced. But I'm pretty good with numbers.
Yeah.
I know how much more I need to make to be comfortable.
Well, okay, so that brings up a good point.
Yeah.
Something that I'm trying to talk with my kids about is this idea of how much is enough. And I think that's it's not just a parent-child thing. It's like a everybody thing, How
much money is enough?
Well, how much money, how much candy, how many stuffed animals,
What is it about that? My son just started collecting the spinners.
The fidget spinners. Yeah.
So he got one. And he loved it, and he was playing with it every day. And the next day I saw him, because it's a divorce situation again.
Okay,
and he's 13, so he's up in Glenview. So I go up and see him 2 to 3 days a week up there. And then he goes, "Hey, I got a new spinner." And, "Hey, Dad, look, I got a new spinner." I said, "How many do you have?" He goes, 11.
11.
What made me stop at that science store in West Chicago, Geneva, and pick him up 3 more?
You did that?
I did that.
Oh, did you?
Because I knew he didn't have those, and mine were only $3.
So, okay, I don't know a whole lot about him. My son has 1 or 2. Are they different?
Yeah.
In terms of like functionality?
Different looks. They're all different styles. Like right now, they just came out with the 2-winged Batman ones. Instead of 3, it's 2.
Oh.
So there's Batman in 4 different colors.
Like the Batarang.
Yep. And now there's LED ones.
Okay.
Now, I would think if they're fidget spinners and they're anxiety, driven, that's what they're for, is to get rid of some of the anxiety and things kids do. And then you have lights on them. It's like, I'm not sure if that's turn off the lights and hit the fidget spinner with LEDs in it. But
they don't bother me. I don't.
They don't bother me either, too. But why 11? Why do you need 11 or 15 of them? Like you said, what's too many?
Yeah. Well,
he collects Legos. $300. His mom let him get a $300 Lego, the Star Wars round circle thing.
I have trouble spending money, that kind of money, especially on Legos, just because you build that one kit once, and then all the pieces go into the giant bucket of, other Legos.
Oh, he doesn't take them apart.
Oh,
no, okay. They're all together on shelves.
Okay, well that's still a lot of money.
He wanted 5 Legos for one birthday. And it was like, I can get 1, maybe 1.5 of the smaller ones. And his mom got the rest. She was doing quite well. And
is this like a competition thing?
No, not at all. I'm glad she can afford them. I can't. Yeah. At that point, I could not. So I just said, whatever. Why do you need 5? How about 2? And he goes, yeah, but I really, and you see his little eyes, and, that's what kids do. They're pretty smart. And so he got all 5, and about 1.5 years later, he's going to a yard sale with his mom. And he said, I'm selling some Legos. And I said, which ones? And he told me. And I said, did you ever make those? And he goes, no. I said, those were the 5 you wanted for your birthday. He goes, well, I only made 1. And I said, well, why would you sell them brand new? And he sold them, I think, at probably 40% of cost. Oh. It made no sense to me whatsoever.
Right. So it's not even a collectible thing where they appreciate it in value.
Well, how much can an 11-year-old at the time appreciate?
Yeah.
Once again, teaching them the value of those kind of things is where we are in life. And, now as a 13-year-old, I can talk to him more like an adult. What the heck you need all that for? I just want them.
Yeah.
I said, but you do understand it's excessive. And I said, everything you do, you have to have 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 20. He goes, I know. And I said, what's that? What does it mean?
Yeah. And so that's what I'm struggling right now with my daughter, who is adorable, and she's 7, almost 8. And she it has a couple hundred stuffed animals right now.
Ooh. Yeah.
At least they're the smallest. She's addicted to the little, like palm
Thai
size
baby type things. Or
yeah. I mean, they're
doesn't
not all,
matter brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she can't see one without, wanting it. And I keep asking her, I mean, you already have like 200 stuffed animals.
I know.
how many more do you need?
So there has to be, you know how when you go out and you buy something new, you see a cool pair of shoes or a nice baseball cap or something, and you buy them and it's like, wow, that's really cool. I wanted these shoes. So to them, it must be a smaller version of that same emotional feeling, but why 200?
Yeah.
Because that emotional feeling happens every time, but it must wear out at some point.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to figure out is how do we talk about, how do you enjoy what you already have? Right. Because isn't
Play
that
with what you have.
kind of, but the struggle even as adults, it's like, how do you
Enjoy what you have.
Be satisfied with what you got?
Well, that's what and I'm thinking of the other one when you said stuffed animals. What were the ugly dolls? You remember those? The ugly
back
dolls?
in the day, the Cabbage Patch Kids?
No, they're ugly dolls. They're like pillows.
Oh, they're actually called ugly dolls?
They're ugly dolls. It's a brand. Yeah, and they're in the comic book stores, and they have like X's on them, and the eyes are like weird.
I don't know anything about this.
So they're ugly dolls,
Okay.
and there's a lot of them, and they're $20, $40, and $60.
Oh,
My son had probably 50 of them.
what?
Mm-hmm. Had 50 of them. A lot of them he buys with his own money that his grandfather gives him, and then we bought some, and his mom bought some. When you're divorced, you're buying them. Hey, can I get this ugly doll? And you go home and you see that he has 20. It's like, what are you doing?
He could have bought a car with that money.
And then he sold the ugly dolls for like $2 a piece. And I said, Hunter, these are $20 to $50 to $60. He goes, I know, I'm done with them. And then the next thing I know, I go there and he's got a brand new ugly doll because he missed them. A year later, he started buying them again, but he only got 2. So it's like, what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to teach that part of it.
Yeah.
Especially in a divorce situation when you're not there full time. If I were there, I wouldn't allow that.
That's got to be tough.
But I'm feeding that. Well, and the good thing is it's an amicable relationship. So there's no issues there whatsoever. I can go over his house for 4 hours and be at his house comfortably. So it's always been the best for him.
Well, that's good.
So and that's true with both my exes. I've never had, there was never really any arguments. It just was a relationship that didn't quite work out. It wasn't angry so lucky that way. But still, I remember my first boy, who's 26, getting married in October now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, going to be a granddad soon, I guess. It could be years. It depends on how quickly they want to have children, but I'm excited about that. But I don't even remember what I was going to say, but it was, he's 26. Yeah, he was another collector, but his mom, I remember going into their house soon after our divorce and seeing a picture of him with a hot dog and smiling. And I just started crying, knowing that I missed his first hot dog. It's things like that. When you see stuff like that, it's like, oh, it broke my heart. I mean, I think for 2 days I cried about a stupid hot dog, but it really wasn't.
It's not about the hot dog.
It's not about the hot dog. It's about not being there.
If it was a hamburger, you probably wouldn't have got as excited.
Right. That's right. Because he had a New England bun. I don't know if you know what that is. But
I don't know what it is, but I know that people around here get really excited about the hot dogs.
Oh, yeah. Chicago dogs.
The Chicago dogs, there's only seven things that go on a Chicago dog. And if you talk about ketchup, that's grounds for homicide.
It's ridiculous. I mean, leave the ketchup lovers alone. I don't use ketchup. I'm mustard, relish, celery, salt. I don't need any more than that.
Pickle, tomato, sport peppers. No?
Have you ever had a Chicago dog?
Yeah.
And you like them? I've never had one. I've never had tomatoes on my hot dog.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean,
unless they make it.
No, I mean, just to eat one is a lot of work because there's just so much crap on it.
I'm not sure I want onions.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's something that I do maybe once or twice a year. It's not like I go to Portillo's and get the two dog special.
Yep.
But especially at a ball game.
Oh, I know.
Got to have the
Forget
Chicago
about
dog.
that. Yeah. But I wouldn't have Chicago.
No?
I just do mustard relish.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your. So in addition to being the morning guy, McKay in the morning.
Yep.
95.9 The River. You have a career that you're working on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
That's real estate. Coldwell Banker, St. Charles. I would ring my bell.
Bing.
Bing, bing. For the
the plug.
Plug, right. So, and who did that here?
Oh,
was it Steve Dahl or was it Kevin?
Well, I know Kevin. I think Kevin did it, but I don't know if he got it from somebody else.
Well,
it's kind of a I mean, who started that?
It's probably the same guy that started the internet.
Yeah, that guy, Al Gore.
But
how'd you get into real estate?
So
when did that happen?
Well, back up to Hunter's mom. We got divorced, and I had lost my job at the True Oldies channel, so I was at 94.7 doing the morning show downtown. Scott Shannon was the DJ out of New York, and he's a legendary DJ. And so he was doing every other shift. I was the first live guy. He had pre-recorded that show every night. Every day he would pre-record the whole day. So I was the first live guy, and I loved it. 2.5 years, loved it. New GM came in, fired me, hired Brant Miller, the weather guy. And so now I'm sitting without a job, and I've always landed. I mean, I've been fired a few times, mostly with morning shows that I'm a character on or was a co-host or whatever. I've never been really fired from my own show, and that was the first time I was really fired from my own show. So, and I knew it wasn't personal because he didn't even know me.
Well, that's just the business.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in...
Well, people say that, but I never experienced that part of the business because I was doing okay. Successful to a degree, but they were switching over to the new monitoring system that was more like a
people meter.
People meter. So I didn't make it through the people meter. It was like the next week, and my boss was trying to keep me. He goes out every weekend to different clubs and dances with old people. He's learned to do the jitterbug and the swing. So he actually goes out and dances with older women and, sings a song with them, which I don't really sing, but I'd sing a song with the band. And I became friends with all these bands, and every weekend I went to a different bar that they would play at and dance, and
And that was your marketing plan? That was promotion? You just go out and dance with people?
That was my ground campaign. Yeah. I would go out and sing, and it's Scott Mackay from the 94.7 True Oldies channel, and flirt with older women. So
sign me up.
I was, I think, 15th, 14th, 13th, 12th in the market in the morning show. And I think, so they fired me. And a week later, the people meter came out. And I think I was 6th. So a year later, Brant Miller was 29th.
Serves him right.
So, well, he's back on. So they fired him. And I said, I want my job back. And they said, we're not going backwards. And I said, you already went backwards. I was better, and that didn't go over so well. So I never got that back.
You're a charmer, aren't you?
Oh yeah, no, I say the right things all the time. But I kind of said it. I said I really want my job back, and they said, "Well, we're not going backwards." I said, "But what do you mean you're not going? You hired Brant. He went 29th, and da. So then they went through someone else, and then they hired Brant back. And all the time, I've always tried to get that job back because it was my favorite job. So what ended up happening is I got fired. A day later, a guy from Aurora calls me. He goes, hey, listen, we have a little station here in Aurora. If you want to keep working, you can work here a couple of weeks until you find something else. And I said, the guy's name was Matt. And I said, sure. So I was driving from Evanston. So within, I think, a month of leaving the job, I went through a divorce. My wife left and went. She had already had an apartment downtown that she had located. And so she took my son, who was 4 at the time, and they moved downtown, went through the divorce. So now I'm living in Evanston, which is an expensive house.
Mm-hmm.
And I was making probably, I was making over $200,000 at the time because I also had a job in Boston that I did from my house, imaging. So I made a good salary there, and then with the morning show there. So I was a little over $200,000. And so when I got fired, the guy here said, so, we pay about $35,000 a year. I said, a couple of weeks, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, within 6 months, my 401k went to my $4,000 house mortgage payment, and until it was gone. And then I went into bankruptcy, divorce, and foreclosure all in 6 months. So now I'm borrowing $20 from interns to get home gas-wise, not knowing how to live. Now, this is where the mental side of it starts playing with you, and you're going, oh, boy, I have never thought I'd be in this situation. I can't find a job. Well, that was right at the beginning of 2008. I got fired in 2007.
Okay,
so
and then
now
the crash.
they're letting Steve Dahl go, off of that 104.3, and they're all the bigwigs now, no jobs. And I said, oh, God. So I'm here. So now I have to learn to live on $35,000 a year because everything else I lost.
Which
so
is
I had to turn
a tiny fraction of what you were bringing in before.
I had to turn my car in because I couldn't afford the Toyota FJ Cruiser anymore. Sorry to let that one go. But that's when my life lessons really began, I think. because I was spoiled by mom. Things were handed to me. The job was not handed. It was kind of handed to me by my teacher, but I would work 12-hour days, and I loved, But I think the problem is I didn't age. I didn't grow up with the job. I was partying. I didn't party as a kid. I was 26 before I did anything. Mm-hmm. And I made up for it in probably the next 15 years or so. But it was not anything hard, but enough. And so I think I was a cheater. I cheated on my first wife. I cheated on my second. But that wasn't my bottom till I met my current wife and my third and last. And I felt I met my match, but we all have real life stories, and mine was one that I just reasoned everything. Well, she doesn't want to go out with me, so I'll find someone else to go out with, and go out and have fun, and that's what I did. And so that person was still alive when I met Susie. She walked into the studio to promote the Geneva Film Festival at the River, and it was my first couple of years there. And I looked at her and just went, holy God, she's beautiful. But, I certainly wasn't thinking marriage. And she walked in, and I have readers. So I kind of put them down and looked over them. I said, hi. She goes, hi. And she was with another guy that drove her in. But she was the one that was coming in to talk to the film festival. He was just support. So I talked to her, flirted with her, got a phone call. The guy that was standing there, his wife is texting him saying, he's like flirting with her big time. And so I said, what is she saying? And he says it on the air, and we're having fun. And I said, well, look at her. He said, she's absolutely gorgeous. Of course I'm going to flirt with her. I'm not stupid. So I had to host the Geneva Film Festival 2 weeks later, and Susie had put me up at a hotel, and my parents were in town, so they stayed. We had, two kings or two queens, and my parents stayed in one, I stayed in the other. But I went out with Susie and her, I didn't know, boyfriend. So I'm sitting at my table with my mom talking about Susie and how beautiful she is, and at the event, we're at the table, and I'm saying she's just gorgeous. And I don't think he heard me, but I know Susie came up and she said, so we're going to need you. I'll go over everything with you. And she goes, did you meet, the couple people? I said, no. And it's mom and dad. And she goes, that's my boyfriend. And I'm on, oh my God.
Oh,
so I don't think he heard, but so, finally I walked up to her at one point. I said, ever since you've been in my studio, I said, I know the boyfriend's sitting over there, but I have not been able to stop thinking about you. I said, day and night. She goes, well, I will admit the same. She goes, but as you see, I do have a boyfriend. She said, so, nothing will be happening. Right? I have a boyfriend. I said, okay. So she broke up with him a couple weeks later, and we started dating. But once again, I was still the same person. I hadn't learned my lesson. So I was kind of not really, I was cheating. I sexted someone, and she caught me and kicked me out of the house.
Yeah.
And I had nowhere to go. So now I have like $200 in my bank account, and she threw me out. And this Vietnam vet that I had met a few times, he and his wife took me in Aurora, right on Yola out here. And they had a full suite, bathroom suite. So I stayed there for about 2 months. And, the first Sunday I woke up, and, Pete is his name. Pete and Terry were downstairs, and I said, where are you guys going? He said, we're going to church. Well, I hadn't really been to church other than maybe a holiday here or there since I was 11. I was in the church choir, as most kids probably were. And so I went to Calvary in Naperville, and I said, can I go? And they said, yeah, you got 10 minutes. We're leaving. I said, so I didn't shower. I just fixed my hair and went to church. And I walk into Calvary, and I go, oh, my God, this is a church? There's big band set up there, rock band, and there's like 30 or 40 choir members up there, and I'm going, holy God, and screens and lights, and I'm going, this is church. So I sit down, and the band starts playing, and we stand up, and they're singing all these songs that I come to find out are on K-Love, and listening, and I'm brought to tears. So I'm sitting there, and then I sit down, and the pastor comes out, and Pastor Ross comes walking out, and he starts talking. He goes, so this is the first of the next 3 weeks, second chances, because we all deserve second chances. And I'm sitting there going, oh, cool. And I cried through the entire thing for 3 weeks. And so on the third week, I went to an after class because I don't know. I never prayed, so I didn't know how to pray. And, they kind of giggled at me. You just ask, just talk to God. So I went to a prayer class, and then I joined a men's group. And so I'm in my 7th year of the men's group every other Saturday, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
So Susie saw that over 6 months, and I got an apartment in Naperville. She said, I would be upset with myself. You're one of the best people I've ever met. She goes, we all have our shortcomings. She goes, but you're a wonderful person. I don't think you know it. And took me back. So, yeah. And from there, my playbook is totally different. I mean, it changed my life forever. And, it's funny how you can let something go and just say, that was so stupid. What was I thinking? And you look back and go, wow, how did you ever reason that to be okay? And then now I see other people doing it. And I try to be that guy that, hey, I went through that same thing. I had a couple guys that have come up to me because I've mentioned little things on the air. He goes, I've heard you mention it. Why not share it? I mean, what good is it to hide your faults? Because to me anyway, it's, if I can help someone, then I'll help. And,
well, it's like you said earlier about, what's the true test of a broadcaster? It's not when everything's smooth and automatic. It's when stuff goes haywire.
Right. So making the best out of that.
Yeah. So it seems like if you broaden the scope, that's what happened to you in your entire life.
Yep.
You went off the rails, but what do you do at that point? That's what, determines what kind of person you are.
Well, I think it's really bizarre because, I always thought I was doing good things and really helping people, but I think I did it for the good that it gave me, not for the good that it gave them. And I think through the church for me, and it's not for everybody, but it is for me. And it's not like, I still swear, I still am imperfect and always will be. And I know that, but I'll never cheat again. I mean, I know that as a fact. And I know I'll be with Susie for the rest of my life because we're made for each other. I mean, we both have our faults, but we all also are very understanding of them. And together we don't fight. We just don't. It's one of the, and we've been together, I think 8 years now, married 4, just had our 4 in April 26th. So, and we're empty nesters now. I still have my 13-year-old, but he lives with his mom, and her kids, 20 and 22, 23 are gone, Seattle and Oregon. They wanted to stay close. So, one's at OSU and the other one's working for Starbucks out in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So
actual corporate Starbucks, right?
No, at the Starbucks store.
Oh,
yeah, at a coffee place. Okay. She was actually working at one of the restaurants of Starbucks. They had the food service Starbucks.
Okay,
but yeah, this was her first. She wanted to move, wanted a fresh start, and went out there and is on her own and doing well.
They have Starbucks around here, though, right?
Yeah, she needed a new location. Yeah,
I get that. So that whole conversation started because I asked you how you got into real estate.
Real estate was, so Susie and I met her, and so it was really, the way it came back to real estate is financially I couldn't make it anymore. And, I would tell my story to anyone who would listen, just like right now, but I would tell it while I was in it, and tell it while I was in it, and tell it while I was in it, anyone. So, and now that's the one thing that embarrasses me the most. And I see other people doing it, and I want to say, please, just a select few. But I told everybody. I told them exactly what I was making in that story exactly that way. Mm-hmm. But now it makes sense to tell it. Then it did not, because all you're doing is presenting how bad and what kind of case. And a lot of people say, oh, I met you. Oh, yeah, met you right at your bottom because you were telling everybody. And it's embarrassing, but it's the way it was.
Yeah, but at that point, you're grasping.
Right.
You're just trying to find some kind of...
I felt I was falling into a black hole, and I was grabbing onto someone to keep me from,
you're drowning
support.
And you're flailing, and you're just trying to find someone to give you some kind of help. Yeah.
Something. Yeah, I don't know. It was easier to share it than tend to own it, I think. This one guy with Naperville Response for our veterans, I started hosting a lot of charity events. So this is how I started making money. Some I would charge, some I wouldn't. I started doing black tie events, and, after a couple of years, I'd ask for a little bit of money, and some I asked right up front, it's my weekend, and I'll get you more money, and, the public service on the radio station, and together we can work, and da-da-da. So, this guy said to me at Naperville Response, he said, listen, why don't you get into real estate? And I said, why? And he said, because of your money issues, he said, real estate's going to come back, and why not do it? Now's a good time to get in. So that went on for 2 years. And he would say, and he sells high-end wood to builders and things like that. And so very successful. And his name's Pat Bowler. And he said to me, and he's a do-gooder. He's on every board. Great. He used to teach golf at North Central College. He was the teacher there. And so finally had the guy from the school call me from, what's the school in Naperville? DuPage College of DuPage or something like that. So he had him call me, and I asked Susie if she would do real estate with me. And she goes, "Are you effing kidding?" She said, "I'm not doing that crap." And I said, "Why?" I said, "If I'm going to do it, you do it, because you'll be great at it." She goes, "No way." And I said, "Please." She was a hairdresser, and she does well. I mean, she was making more than I was, for sure.
She still do it?
1 day a week. So she finally agreed to real estate. Well, in the class, she was acing everything. I'm like, what? I hadn't been to school since I was 17. And I'm going, oh my God, the book is the size of a table we're sitting at. And, all this law and rules. And I'm going, how am I going to retain this? I haven't ever studied. I didn't study when I was in school, but I passed the first time. But Susie passed aces. And the teacher, who was 70 years old and worked for Berkshire Hathaway in South Elgin or something, said, Susie finished first. And she goes, you can go outside and sit, hang out. And it was her fake test, so that she was preparing us to go take the real estate test. It was a class test. So Susie went out, and she followed her right out there. She goes, "I really want you to work with us." And she goes, "Well, that, my husband and I are going to be working together." She goes, "Oh, I'll take him too." And she really wanted Susie. So I took an extra hour beyond Susie to finish my test, but I passed that one barely, though. And then by the time Susie took the test, the real test, about 3 weeks earlier than me, and she kept saying, "Why don't you go take it?" And I said, I'm studying the way I need to study, because I haven't studied in so long. So I want to make sure. She goes, "Scott, it's not that hard." And I passed it the first time. So, but she still does most of the work. I'm like the thug. I'll do the signs and the showings and the, open houses. And she does all the contracts and most of the paperwork. And she does 80% of it. But this year we're in our 4th year right now. And this year I'm getting more involved at the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but you're still going. So
we love it.
You're having some success.
Oh, big time. Yeah. We were up 134% this year from last.
Nice.
We closed on 3 houses last week. So yeah, that's pretty good. We're having a good time.
Do you get to mention that on your show?
Not really.
Yeah, you don't get
Danielle once in a while. I have some saved up commercials from extra work that I did on the side without pay, that I can run some commercials for the real estate, but I've chosen not to yet. Yeah. Not sure how to do it. I've been thinking about it for 3 years.
Well, I'm just wondering, legally, contractually.
You can't do it.
Yeah, you can't.
If I paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't just sit there and be like, "Hey, by the way, visit my website."
But if I did, it would be part of what I paid for. Yeah. But otherwise, no.
Right.
I talked about going to class. So while I was in class, I told stories about it, because you share your life. But once I got the job, I mentioned once that I was with Coldwell Banker, and then just did not do it.
It's probably a good...
But Danielle, my co-host, will mention my wife's in real estate every once in a while.
Let's talk about Danielle, shall we?
Yeah.
Tell me. Start talking about Danielle Tufano.
Danielle Tufano is young. She's 31. I met her. She applied for the morning show at 94.7 when we were looking for a newswoman. I really wanted her as my co-host. And Scott Shannon, she's too young. Sounds too young. I don't know. She doesn't know the music. And I'm like, well, I think she'd be really good. But she didn't get the job. So I think she found the job at the River at that time. So she was doing middays, 10 to 2, 10 to 3 when I started on the River doing the mornings. And I think I don't know if she was music director then, but she ended up becoming music director and assistant program director, and basically doing all the crap work that the program director didn't want to do. And she programmed the music with his guidelines. So he was let go. And then I had a co-host that quit while I was in Mexico doing a live broadcast, and she just quit. And so Danielle started filling in, And it had nothing to do with me. She just quit. So Danielle for 2 months was with me, and then all of a sudden I was told that she was going to be made my boss and the permanent member of the morning show. And I said, what do you mean my boss? And they said, well, she's going to get the program director title. And I went, oh, God, here we go. So, that took some time to know that you're working across from your boss, even though she's 31 and I've been in it 39 years, still, and with religion, you treat your boss like you would God. She's there for a reason. Don't badmouth her, which I couldn't not do. I was not good at that. And that was my latest change in life. It's just to stop. If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it unless it's in a sense of humor or it's for fun. But if it's hurtful, just stop. So that's been my latest thing is just done. I'm done talking. But Danielle is one of the most talented people. Number one, I think she's wasting her time in Aurora, but she likes being here because this is a station for starters and or people like me and Mitch Michaels. We don't have the downtown jobs. And Beth Reynolds even. She's been in the business a long time. Our midday girl. And I love what I do. And I always said I would do it for free. Hello. Careful what you say too many times. It's true. But no, I make such good money now with the commercial side of, because I sell too, advertising on the station. Okay. So I have green tea services that I do their commercials, and Advantage Chevrolet of Bolingbrook and Hand and Stone Massage. And so all those people are income. Mm-hmm. So while my salary in 10 years has basically moved maybe $6,000 in 10 years, there's opportunity, and it's up to you to grab it and find it. And that's what I've done. And, this is the best time of my life. I mean, honestly, and I have always loved my life wherever I was. So I'm hoping that now that I'm at this stage, it's only better. And that better is increasingly better, where before it was small increments. So yeah, things are good. And Danielle is extremely talented. She should be downtown Chicago making a bundle because that's how talented she is. And I don't want to see her sit here too long. Yeah. But
it sounds like Eric might need a new partner.
Yeah, that's right. So, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. Is it 3.5 weeks now? Maybe the 4th, but she's not back yet, right?
I don't know. I only know what Robert Feeder tells me.
Oh, me too. But yeah, that's how I found out all my stuff. The Feeder man.
Yeah,
he's written about me a couple times.
Yeah,
yeah, just things, But
that's when you know you've made it.
Yeah,
when you're in Feeder's column.
Scott Mackay fired from the Trilogy's channel. No, actually, he wrote about me when I got the job, so that was good.
Yeah.
And I think I sent him a letter
thanking him for acknowledging.
I sent him a letter upset with the management that let me go.
Oh,
without permission to print it. Thank God.
Yeah.
That could have hurt me for a long time. It wasn't crazy bad. It was more of a, I can't believe when da-da-da-da. But
so you were not necessarily whining. You were venting.
No, that one hurt. I mean, I wanted my job back.
Yeah.
When I saw it go south after I left, I that was probably my favorite job of all time.
Well, and that just adds insult to injury, right? And you're like, listen, I was kicking butt.
Yeah. But it wasn't showing until the new ratings came out. So then it was too late. But you know what? I think and looking back on it now, I'm here for the right reasons, for the right people, for the right lessons. And without it, I'd still be where I was 10 years ago. Yeah. So if you look at life as everything has happened for a reason, and it's God's plan. And without those, I wouldn't be who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Because I thought about it. I said, what is my legacy? When I started getting involved a little more in the spiritual side of it, what is my legacy when I leave? He's a radio cheater. That's probably what it'd have been. Good guy, but never really made a mark. Mm-hmm. Just kind of floated along, loved what he did. He definitely loved his job, but never really made a mark. So I think being able to do all these charity events and actually glad that you're helping someone else, not saying, well, there's a notch on I did that,
Yeah.
But connecting with the people, I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah. Well,
same with this, this PechaKucha stuff that I do. That's kind of where I met you.
PechaKucha.
That is another whole world. I mean, it's a whole nother world of people that I wouldn't have met without having that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I mean, because once again, it's a social atmosphere, but it's also a little more intelligent than I'm used to. You know, people actually, you know what I mean, though. I mean, I'm playing stupid records, talking about the guy who farted in the Wendy's window, and you know, something like that, you know, or the guy that slipped on the stupid orange juice container and is suing for $18,000. It's like, come on. So it's just, you know, it's a little more brow. A little more highbrow.
So for those of you who are listening and have no idea what we're talking about, there's a group that started up a couple years ago in Batavia, and it's called PechaKucha, and we'll have a link to it in the show notes because I couldn't even tell you how to spell it right now. But it's basically an evening of presentations. People get up and they have 20 slides, and the slides last 20 seconds each, and you can talk about whatever you want.
Whatever story you want.
Whatever you want. As long as you're passionate about it and you feel like sharing it with the community. And it turns out to be a really cool evening.
It was, you know, I did it because of Hicks Brothers Music. So I had worked with them at Loaves and Fishes events, community events, and hosted the stage. And I think he had seen me there, and one of the Hicks brothers, and had seen me there and said, you know, suggested it to George, who kind of runs the PechaKucha of the Batavia Library.
Yeah, that's George Sheets.
Yep. And so I did it once and twice and third, and I'm ready for my fourth. And it's just one of those things where it feels comfortable, you know, and people get my jokes. Amazing. You know, I don't have to pause or anything. So, but I don't plan anything. That's the thing. I look over because you have to introduce each person, and you look over their little bio that they sent. And there's always something quirky in there. And you only need one little thing in each of the introductions that might be silly or funny. And it just seems to work. And then you have to watch them, and you come up and kind of comment about something that might have happened during their thing. And then you have your little quirk introducing the next person, and that's really all it takes. But it's an engaging crowd. I mean, there are people that are really into being there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're doing things and people aren't listening. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, to have people who are actually paying attention.
Right.
Sure.
That are there for the right reason, you know, not just the pizza.
But are you doing okay? We haven't taken a commercial break. You're kind of...
I didn't know you took commercial breaks.
Just
because I do?
Because, yes, about what, every 3-4 minutes?
Well, yeah, plus we're playing music.
Yeah.
So that's a break.
If there was one song that you could remove permanently from the 95.9 The River playlist, what would it be?
Oh, my God. What one would come out? You know, so I'm not a big fan of Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay.
And there's that one ballad that he did.
The one with Lita Ford?
No, it's just him.
Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a good song and all. It's just...
You guys play that one?
Yeah, I shouldn't be playing that on my morning show. It's just Ozzy Osbourne, Mama, I'm Coming Home. I guess if you're going to play that song, the morning show would be best because it's kind of soft for Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. But when that came up and I went, what the hell is this? Because I once again, I wasn't a big rock fan. When I grew up, I was listening to Carly Simon and James Taylor, England Dan, Seals and Crofts. So I was doing that kind of Billy Don't Be a Hero, all that stuff.
Bread. How about Bread?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Make It With You, Everything I Own, Mother Freedom, Diary, If, on and on. So, that.
Okay, so Mama, I'm Coming Home.
80s Bruce Springsteen, I'm like, I'm okay with, but I've just played it so many times that, Born in the USA, it's just like, it's great when on July 4th.
But it's not a patriotic song. You know that, right?
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks it is.
Okay, well, maybe I don't know. Explain.
Well, it's more of a protest type song.
Oh, okay.
It's not a Go USA song.
Okay.
It's not like everyone thinks
right.
it is.
Well, if you just use Born in the USA.
Yeah, if you just cut that.
Works,
yeah.
Right.
Boop, chop that. Yeah.
I don't even know what he sings. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I know the first line from almost every song, and that's it, unless I was a big fan of the song.
Well, you're a DJ, so all you need to know is the open and the close,
up,
right?
Yeah. The introduction, and then you
make sure you hit the post.
As soon as the post hits, and, here's Bruce. And then you're off doing whatever you're doing next.
You are spot on.
Yeah, right. Spot on.
Oh, man. So,
but I don't.
It's just, 95.9 The River.
I'm trying to think of what song.
Boston, REO, ZZ Top, Journey.
Yeah.
Just a lot of that.
The hits just keep coming. What about you?
What about me?
What song would you take off the river that every time it comes on, you go, oh my God, not this again? Is there an artist?
Not necessarily. It's just, I grew up as a big, as much as you were not a classic rock guy, I was a classic rock guy.
Now, okay, so Steve Miller, Boston, Eagles, all that stuff I'm good with, loved.
Okay.
So what I didn't love was Pink Floyd.
Okay. Which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was just drug music to me because all my friends were smoking pot and listening in their headphones and, oh man, this is great. And to me, it was scary. I was actually afraid of it. I was afraid of Pink Floyd, and I didn't understand Led Zeppelin at all. Mm-hmm. That's just like, oh man, that's like.
How about Kiss?
I liked Beth.
their wimpiest song.
And I Was Made for Loving You, because that was pop.
That was glam.
Yeah.
That's glam rock right there.
I was made for loving you. So I like that.
Okay.
Right next to the Bay City Rollers,
So to answer your question, what song would I remove? I don't know. It would just be because I've heard it so many times.
Would it be a Journey song?
I don't know, because I really like Journey.
Yeah, me too.
But it would probably be like I don't know. See, I don't come up with answers to my questions. You're supposed to answer.
You know
my
what song
question.
that bothers me that when I see it coming up is Chain. Chains, Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah, The Chain.
Yeah, The Chain.
You don't like that one?
I don't know.
I used to play that one in my old college band.
I get it. It's and it's just a little dark,
Yeah,
There's
there was a
something
lot
about
of stuff going on in Fleetwood Mac
Yeah.
at that time between all the members.
So I come to find out later. So to me, most of them were faceless bands when I grew up because you never saw them unless they were on like Don Kirshner's rock concert. So if you saw it there, then you knew what they looked like. Like I'll never forget seeing Neil Sedaka doing Bad Blood on whatever. There was Don Kirshner's and then there was the Midnight Special. So he comes out in a sweatshirt that looks like it was made for a small dog. And so he's all, and it's got like glitter on the front, like sparkling white. And he's doing bad. And he's doing his little Neil Sedaka dance. And it's like, who is this guy?
Right. You would have been better off not seeing that.
Not seeing. Because number one, he couldn't dance, but he was trying so hard. And, but then to come to find out, he had a daughter, Dara, and a lovely wife. So it wasn't the Neil Sedaka I was thinking he might be. But yeah, he was back in the day, Brill Building, Carole King and all that stuff. So, but it's funny seeing him. So I didn't know the Eagles. I didn't know who they were. I just knew they were the Eagles. And if you open the album cover, I think it took out the sleeve, there were some pictures in it. But for the most part, most of the bands were pretty faceless.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know what songs Glenn Frey did until, they did the whole history of the Eagles, that 6-hour program or 4-hour program, which was amazing. But you didn't know. And to see Afternoon Delight and the Starland vocal band singing that song now on one of those like Dick Clark or Bandstand lip syncing, and it's like, wow, what did they even CCR at the time with the bell bottoms and it's kind of crazy.
But that was cool back then.
Oh, it was cool. There's no question, with the stripes. And I mean, there are bands that are out there performing as CCR dressed exactly in the clothes that CCR wore. Mm-hmm. I mean, they went and got some of the clothes that they wore.
Like the actual
clothes.
Oh, okay. Not like
some of them and their best recreation.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did it as close as they could. So I think that's funny too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it is almost time for a commercial break.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you hanging out and
sure.
and sharing some stories and secrets, and
I'm wondering how many of them are going to get me in trouble.
No, I think you're all right.
I'm too old to care.
Yeah. My wife, Callie, is a huge fan of yours.
Oh, she is.
So, before we wrap up, she sent me a text saying, make sure you tell Scott I said hi.
All right. Hi, Kelly.
So
we met though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I met her at the PechaKucha.
Yeah. So, and as we were talking before the show, she's a huge Elvis fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm lucky because her order of operations, I hope, is number 1 is me, number 2 is Elvis, and then number 3 is Scott Mackay.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
I'm right behind the king.
You're on the podium.
That's nice. No, that's really cool. I'm the little guy with the bronze statue, bronze. But no, that's cool. That's very cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know to that degree anyway.
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable at times.
Well, what is it? I mean,
why does she like you?
Yeah, what do you think it is?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and listen to the show and see if there's any redeeming qualities.
Well, because she wouldn't have known what I look like, right?
No. I mean, she really enjoys your show.
The show. That's what I mean. So to me, I don't, you don't hear it doing it. You have no idea who's listening. You don't see anyone that's listening. You're talking to air. That's the bizarre part about being in radio. You never see your audience until you do a live show. And then most people don't show up because they're going to work.
And the people that do show up are sometimes creepy, I bet.
I usually end up buying a lot of meals.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll have to come on. When's the next one?
Whenever you need a free meal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
So, there are more stories down the road. Yeah.
Well, you let us know when you're done being in trouble for this show, you feel like the heat is off.
Yeah.
Then you can come back.
Well, and there's so many other topics in the career.
Sure.
Go.
Maybe you need your own podcast.
I've never done one. Yeah.
Well, I do. You just did one.
I can do secrets of the 70s songs that I love.
Yeah.
Those little secrets in the background where John Lennon was playing the harmonica and Delbert McClinton taught him how to play the harmonica and little things like that.
Yes.
I like stuff like that.
Yes.
I never knew Casey Kasem was friggin' Shaggy until I was older.
Zoinks.
Like 20s. I mean, how dumb is that? Especially when you're a voice guy, when you pay attention to that stuff.
He didn't really change his voice that much.
He didn't change it at all, but I still didn't catch it because it was a little more, there's no way that he's playing a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Not the Casey Kasem.
He did.
They had to talk about a fucking dog dying.
I have to come out of a dedication. Or wait,
I have
was
to
it
come
an
out of
upbeat record?
Goddamn up-tempo record and talk about a fucking dog dying? Is Don on the phone? And then he starts looking for the pictures he was supposed to sign. You could just tell that he was a dick just because of that rant. Everyone gets in there. It happens to me every goddamn time I come out of an up-tempo record. There's got to be someone that'll take a concerted effort not to come out of a goddamn up-tempo record.
And I do talk about a death dedication.
Just when he started reading it, and how long distance the dedication to a family, a dog, and their dad, and I'm going, oh boy. And he goes, wait, stop the record.
Yeah, that's classic. If you don't know what we're talking about, just look up Casey Kasem
outtake
rant.
Yeah, rant, outtake, dog dying.
Yeah,
one of my faves.
Cool, man.
Well,
all
thanks,
right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott Mackay. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your stories with us. Listeners, please catch his morning show on 95.9 The River. Call him if you need to buy and or sell a house anywhere here in the Fox Valley. And I'd like to encourage you to reach out to me if you have a story you'd like to share, if you know somebody who tells good stories around here, or if you have an idea for a story or someone you'd like to hear from, I want to hear from you. So you can get a hold of me on Facebook, Twitter, send me an email at talk@foxvalleyvoice.com. Special thanks to James Cardis for the music you heard in this episode. And check out our other shows. I produce a show for Bree Hayes at Fawn Gifts. Her show is called Rivertown Life. And you can find that show and some other shows coming up as well if you visit foxvalleyvoice.com.
Fox Valley Voice.